My guests tonight, Dr. Ekuro Okot, Millie Odhiambo Mabona, and Raphael Tuju. My name is Ken Mijungu. The hashtag is Sidebar, at NTV Kenya, at Ken Mijungu. SMS line 20686. Welcome to the program. Sidebar begins.
The leader of majority, like the leader of majority in the House of Representatives, in the Congress, employs a number of tricks to make sure that the government agenda is complied with. And let me finish. When half of my team, I told them to withdraw, my business was to make sure that the 233 threshold is not achieved.
This country is going down the drain. There's no leadership, there's tyranny of the executive and other political leaders in the country. There's no opposition.
So hata kama ni mambo ya party, Raila ameuza Kenya.
Mtu mwenye ametuharibia kutengeneza VAT na taxes na finance bill kwenda through na kukandamiza wananchi ni Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga.
All right, this is not a conversation about Raila Odinga per se, but it's a conversation about what happened in Parliament and from the eye of the public and a lot of the people observing from the sidelines. It seems as if the opposition did not do its role in Parliament. Let me begin with the only active member of Parliament right now, Millie Mabona. It looks as though from the eyes of the public, the opposition did not perform its role. They never expected the opposition to side with the government side, especially on a bill such as this.
Okay, first of all, I was smiling while you were talking.
Okay.
And the reason I'm smiling is because you need to replace the word opposition with Raila Odinga. I think you are getting your facts mixed up. I don't think you mean opposition here. Okay. You mean Raila Odinga. Basically, what you guys are doing is missing Raila Odinga and the role he's played all along. Because of the handshake and because of the way they've agreed to move on with the president to take the country forward, I think you are missing the role that he was playing to hold the country or the executive accountable. Other than that, you must be the only stranger in Jerusalem for you to have missed the fact that something peculiar happened in Parliament, which is that both the so-called opposition and members of Jubilee were actually together in opposing this. In fact, I've heard my good friend Tuju saying it's about to discipline.
That's the ordinary members. That's the ordinary members. I'm looking at the leadership.
Your point.
Yes, the leadership.
Honorable Tuju is about to discipline his members. I'm about to be disciplined because for the first time, both opposition and Jubilee, not our first time, but for this parliament, even the last parliament, I've only seen this happening 3 times since I joined parliament. And this is my 3rd term in Parliament. One, when we refused the interest rate capping during the period of Raila and Kibaki. And secondly, during the ICC, where you also defied Raila. I think at some point it was only me and I think Orengo who remained with Raila on one position when everybody else went one direction. Because we were saying, no, let's not go to The Hague, let's remain. Everybody was like, no. So this is one of those very rare moments when both the opposition and the government, the governing side were together. Okay. So it's not true. I think that's why I'm saying you need to get your facts right. You're just missing the role that Raila used to play. But otherwise, as we are speaking now, there are a number of people who are about to be disciplined.
But we agree, the ordinary members went against the grape. They went against the instructions from the opposition, from their leadership, from their party leadership. In fact, it was said by majority leader very clearly, the position held in the House was the position of Kalonzo Musyoka, Raila Odinga, and President Uhuru Kenyatta. I'll come to you, but let me go to the SG, because you hold majority in Parliament, right? And of course, as she says, a lot of your members also went the other way. We saw the likes of Mheshimiwa Mushomba leading right from the front and castigating the passage of that bill and what happened in Parliament. But in your view, has your party swallowed the opposition such that they are so ineffective, especially when they get instructions from the top?
First of all, let me agree with my sister Millie here that to govern and in political system, a democratic political system, you must have an opposition, and you should have the government side. And you seem to think that the word majority is a dirty word. I think you have to reconcile with the fact that no government is able to run the country without a working majority. The next thing, which I also want to agree with Millie here, is that it's a very bad time to be in journalism today. I was one. And journalism and good television is made by conflict, people fighting each other. That's what is dramatic. That's what makes good television. People abusing each other. That's what makes good television. In fact, if you can bring a bit of violence, it's good drama. If you can get people abusing each other, it's even better drama. If you can introduce sex, murder, and some of those things, then it's fantastic drama. Unfortunately, since the handshake, you don't have that. So you're really groping in the dark, wondering, you know, what can we do now?
Really?
Oh, yes.
We're not doing it.
You are.
We're not, because we deal with facts. That's his opinion, though.
No.
That's what he thinks. That's all what we're doing.
Let's not even go to opinion, because I wanted to talk about you.
Simplifying this.
I want to simplify.
Simplifying it. Yes.
You know, and let's not even go to opinion, because the editorial we've just read is such a string of amazing opinions which are so biased that, I mean, I'm just amazed that you could even say.
Point out one area of the...
For example, saying that Jubilee has swallowed the opposition. I think what you're failing to understand is that an opposition is not supposed to be in enmity with the government. It's supposed to provide checks and balances. It's not supposed to be enemies. It's supposed to be opposition. What is important is the opposition and government are supposed to work for the good of this country. At times, there's a confluence of interest and understanding. That does not mean that when we all agree, for example, that we should take care of our children and have better education standards, the opposition should oppose that. That's where there's a confluence of interest. So for you coming out saying that any time the opposition agrees with the government,
we didn't use the word any time.
Yeah, but on this particular case, for example, you're saying, oh, this thing is going to affect the economy in this way and that way. Let me tell you, the ABC of economy is such that I can tell you, on this issue, it was like the doctor prescribing that you have to take an injection to treat this malady.
Okay.
That's why it was postponed in 2013. In 2016, it was postponed. In 2018, we want to postpone it. At one time, we have to take that bitter pill. That is the truth of the matter.
Forcefully take that bitter pill,
That is the bitter pill. That's the bitter pill.
Yes, forcefully.
And if there was something fundamentally wrong with that VAT, then it should not have been postponed. It should have been cancelled. So in principle, it was agreed by our very good parliamentarians that it is a little bit not the comfortable time to do it. And let me tell you, for free, whatever economics you want to look at, and I would want to advise you, please talk to other economists.
I've spoken to them on this table.
Yes, on this table.
I've spoken
now,
to them.
for example,
last week.
Yes, we did.
For example,
yes.
If we don't balance our budget, it means we're going to borrow more. If we borrow more, it means that we're going to put pressure on the shilling. If the shilling devalues by about 10% or 15%, you're going to pay more for petroleum products, because you'll need more shillings to buy the dollar, which means that the cost of fuel is still going to go up anyway.
Okay.
So it's a question of, are you getting this injection on your thigh, or are you getting on your arm?
Later.
Now or later. And I think we should be honest.
The economist is sat with here thinks the government has a spending problem. It has a spending problem, and this is something we had a wide discussion with top economists in this country on this table. But I'm coming back to you. Let me speak to you. The same question. In your view, from where you sit, is the opposition non-existent? Let me be a little checked.
Okay. First of all, I mean, looking at the events of last week and the despicable behavior, the most dishonorable behavior we saw of parliamentarians, and my sister Millie sits in that parliament. I think it was a shame, it was a big embarrassment for this country to see politicians, members of parliament, elected by their constituents, to go and represent them on the issues that concern them, behaving the way they behaved. It was the most dishonorable thing.
Exactly.
Them shouting, lying to Kenyans that they actually supported the bill when they did not support it. But let me tell you this. We
didn't support it.
No, you did. You did. And I will explain, time allowing, I'll tell you. You are lying to Kenyans here that they actually opposed the bill. You did not oppose. You actually supported it.
You have just changed your word.
Yes, you supported it. But let me tell you, Millie, just allow me to speak. Maybe you guys are used to shouting so much in parliament. Let's have a conversation here. First of all, if you're talking about the death of opposition inside parliament, it is true, I'll agree with you. The people who have been masquerading or lying to Kenyans that they are the opposition, they can represent the views of Kenyans, were actually swallowed by the government. They're actually an appendage of the executive. So the parliament we have today is actually an appendage of the executive. In fact, they cannot come here, not Millie or anybody here can come and tell us that they were not swallowed by the executive. On Wednesday, or even Thursday, before they went to parliament on Thursday, they were actually summoned, they had parliamentary
group meetings,
yes, in which they were whipped to actually support the president. And they came out to openly support. So let's stop this.
I think they were also very open in disagreeing with the passage of that bill.
They did not.
No, they were very open.
They did not.
Members were very open.
Let me tell you this. Listen.
Yes.
This parliamentarians.
He's also trying very hard to be opposition.
No. Let me tell you. Let me tell you this.
Yes.
If you're talking about opposition inside parliament, yes, it is dead. The death of some political parties, for example, the party that Millie Odhiambo represents in parliament, is not the death of the opposition. The idea of opposition politics is having an alternative view to what government policy is. You criticize government, you suggest alternative views. Like, for example, what Third Way Alliance Kenya has been doing. That, yes, President Uhuru Kenyatta has come out to say that over-representation is a cost on Kenyans and we must be prepared for it. What is an opposition supposed to do? An opposition is supposed to offer alternative views, like Third Way Alliance Kenya did. We said to President Uhuru Kenyatta, fine, if over-representation is a problem, because these parliamentarians currently cost us about 36.8 billion Kenya shillings annually. As an opposition party, we have proposed to President Uhuru Kenyatta that we have something called Punguza Mizigo, a campaign called Punguza Mizigo, reduce the size of parliament. We don't need that
But that's not the role of the president.
No, wait. Listen, it's a good idea. It's a good idea that I think, we were responding to the president's own concern about the fact that we are overrepresented. And we have said that overrepresentation comes with a cost, that 6.8 billion. What is an opposition party supposed to do? An opposition party or opposition party is supposed to give the president or the government an alternative view.
Okay.
Like we have done. We have said to the president, support Punguza Mizigo, because Punguza Mizigo campaign means you will have to reduce the cost of running parliament from current at 6.8 billion to 5 billion. That's an idea. But we have also told, Ken, listen to me. You are. Ken, listen to me. You asked the question about opposition. Please let me explain.
Yes, but you have gone and now we are discussing the president's proposals.
I'm talking about.
But it's not a conference.
No, I'm talking about. I'm talking about what opposition. I'm talking about what opposition.
You made alternative proposals to the president.
Absolutely.
As an opposition.
We've done that.
The role. But
the people claiming to be opposition inside parliament. I have not in any way given an alternative view to parliament. In fact, they have been swallowed by parliament. Whereas I agree with the Honorable Tuju that sometimes you can agree with parliament, which is what even
when they're doing noble things that affect
that's fine.
The masses.
But you cannot come here and lie to us that you are not part of the problem. Millie Odhiambo here was actually in parliament when they passed the appropriation bill. The appropriation bill ought to have told Kenyans, these are the sources of how you fund this
for the finance bill.
Finance bill, okay?
I agree with you, Daktari.
The appropriation bill is yet to come. But that
No, it
that
already,
aside,
it was signed 30th. It was signed 30th
that
of
one
June.
is yet to come.
It-
Let me just say.
No.
Let me say this. Yeah?
No, wait, Millie.
Can I say
No,
this? You
let's-
know, it is not
Millie,
a. It's not
Millie,
a workshop.
you will respond. Just
we
give
are
him a
dealing
second.
with the
Just
media.
shortly.
It's a media program. It's not a
I didn't
workshop.
interfere with you when you
No,
were
but
saying.
you are
make
going
it
on like
short.
it's a
Because
workshop where you are the
I want to
trainer,
ask you a question.
training us.
This is, you're talking about the proposals of the president, especially
Yes.
you've given the example of the huge wage bill and
Yeah.
over-representation. But you were instrumental in drafting the constitution. Why didn't you arrest it at that time?
Ken,
Yes.
and I will say this with the utmost respect to you,
Yes.
as a journalist who's supposed to have done research, who's supposed to be well read. That is a very tired argument.
No, but why didn't you
wait.
realize? Because you can't say that.
But can you
didn't
allow me
arrest
to
it.
respond?
Yeah.
You want to be your own
It's not a
host?
tired argument.
Do you want
Just
to be
make
your own
your
host?
argument.
Do you want to be your own host in your own show?
Make your argument.
Okay, Ken, let me say why this is a tired argument. People keep on telling me, Ekuru Aukot, you are in the committee of experts.
Yes.
It's very true, I was in the committee of experts. But I also can tell you today, a lot of you people, including you journalists, did not even follow the constitution-making process of Kenya. Because in one of our final report, we warned of the cost of running this constitution. We warned. And secondly, Article 255, all through to 258, gives mechanism on how you can change the constitution.
Which is true. I just brought it up as a by the way, as Millie responds to a lot of things, because you're even accusing them of not arresting it during the debate on appropriation bill. So I'm wondering, why didn't you arrest this yourself when you were at the committee of
we
experts?
did. Constitution
But in the
making.
report, you should have vetoed it at that time.
Constitution
You are the
making.
top, yes.
And I know you're taking sides now.
Which side?
Constitution making. Of course, Ken, you sound
side?
like...
No,
let me tell you.
It's a question.
Constitution making, Ken.
Yes.
Constitution making is a negotiated instrument.
Okay.
It's a negotiated agreement.
Okay.
And let me tell you, Milia will tell you as a lawyer, and so will Honorable Tuju, that when you come into a political negotiation,
It's a give and take.
It's give and take. It's
Okay.
about, it cannot be either my way or it the highway. In fact, if I was writing Kenya's constitution today, I would not leave anything chance. Certainly not to these politicians who are in parliament.
Millie, now you can respond before I go to
Yeah,
Tuju. You have to take a break.
let me just say, my good friend Ekuru, today his arguments are fairly interesting. I don't know, it's because he says he's an early riser and he does very badly late in the night. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because he's talking about being the opposition outside parliament.
Yes.
But for you to qualify to be opposition, you need to have at least one member of parliament. Absent that, you are a civil society. Even me, I came from civil society.
First of all,
But having you have spoken.
Can I just correct you? Okay, point of information.
No, it's not a workshop. No, I don't want. I don't want to be informed. Okay. And I want my dear good friend Dr. Ekuru to know that we are not in a workshop where he's a trainer. we are in a media thing. Okay. So what I want to say is that he is not in the opposition. He is civil society until he's able to garner at least one member of parliament to be able to raise that. But also having said that, I think it does not even it does not have the understandings of how parliament operates. There are times in democracies, again, as you say that, you'll have opposition that will exercise, sort of oversight role, and even parliament exercises oversight role. And one of the things I'll correct, what I will tell you that one of the things that he does not understand, that even so, every party has its policies. And there's nothing wrong. I see it even in the US. You must rally your members on a position. And ODM must rally its members on a position. That is why you're hearing parties are saying, because you did not follow your party, and I've said it before, and I'm not only saying it now, that you can be subject to punishment.
Okay.
Yeah, because if I disagree with my party, I will be punished.
Yes. Quickly join to what Millie said. Because let
me speak to.
I'm not lying.
I'll come to you.
Lying over what?
Yes.
And the parliamentarians don't lie.
Still speaking. Yeah.
I think there's also something else I wanted to add with respect to your assertion that opposition is swallowed.
Okay. And his assertion.
Yeah, and you say we should not look at things as if we are operating in a vacuum. We have a a very unfortunate history of violence in 2000 and post-2007, 2008 elections. Previous to that, we had tribal clashes immediately after elections. In 2017, we had a very divisive elections. People died. The Building of Bridges initiative is about making compromises.
Okay.
And I think it is something that all of us Kenyans should support.
Okay.
Because we're a very unique country. We are actually different nationalities brought together in one geographical area called Kenya. So there are a lot of possibilities for the country to fall apart. And therefore, while it is good journalism and good TV to get people divided and fighting amongst themselves, I think those of us who have got the instruments of communication like yourself should also understand your role in terms of bringing this country together. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, it was a good thing when at least we can agree on certain things.
Okay. At the expense of Kenyans.
It is not at the expense of Kenyans.
Ken.
You notice where we didn't agree, members also didn't agree.
Allow me to quickly rejoin that, just 1 minute.
Yes, less.
First of all,
yes.
Millie Odhiambo, as my senior lawyer, a senior colleague in the profession, ought to know opposition politics isn't about necessarily about being elected into parliament. She ought to know that Article 119 of the Kenya Constitution allows any Kenyan to petition parliament like we did in April of this year to tell parliamentarians, instead of postponing this problem of VAT, amend the VAT Act. Okay? And I hope we'll come back to a time where, for me, I disagree with Honorable Tuju, my good friend Honorable Tuju, that the building bridges is actually piece of nonsense. We don't need it.
So you saying that 119, if you petition parliament, you become opposition?
No, you can. No, that's not what I'm saying. I need to. All I'm saying is this: a legislator and a lawyer like Millie Odhiambo, many years, ought to know.
You trained under me, my brother.
No, I can teach you. Can we talk the constitution?
Can I come back and talk the constitution, because we've been
after all, what is the point of being elected in parliament and doing nothing like they did last week?
Okay. We're coming back. Let's take a break, but first let's look at some feedback from you. Coming shortly on the screen right now on Twitter. Let's take a look at some feedback. Right, that says from Gadara, he said, it's a job of all members of parliament, not just those who are not members of the president's party, to check the executive. Actually, that is happening, to check, okay. And Nzioka wa Kaloki says, do we have official opposition seat in our new constitution? Merely answer that appropriately. There's no position, it's majority and minority. Yes, and finally, let's say Kenya has never had an opposition without mentioning Raila. He's a big role player in the opposition. That's exactly the point you're making. Is that all? All right, some of the feedback that we're getting from you. We're coming back with this discussion. I'd like to begin with Daktari when we come back, but first let's take a break on Sidebar. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Sidebar. Let's finish the discussion whether the opposition is dead or not. So you agree. He says it's not dead. He says there's no opposition.
So for me, I think, first of all, let's be brutally honest, Ken. The definition of what is opposition politics in Kenya has been about the definition of what is violent, confrontational politics. That the absence of confrontational and violent politics, especially the one that is played by Millie's party, is what people describe as opposition. What we have suggested as Third Way Alliance right from last year, and even when we considered defeat, we said we're going to play opposition politics. We may not be in government, we may not be in parliament, but we are going to have an alternative view on what government ought to do to the people. And that's for example, why we as Third Way Alliance proposed a 14-point agenda for national conversation. We participated in the vetting of cabinet position appointed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Our party abandoned these, sessions in parliament. They actually walked away. We have proposed the amendment of the VAT Act. We formed a shadow cabinet. So the idea of opposition politics is actually giving government alternative, criticizing government. As we have said, we are not necessarily going to oppose government for the sake of opposing it. Because honestly, what I'm seeing from my friend's party is complete dishonesty. On the one hand, you even go ahead and swear yourself in. It's lack of integrity. You pretend that actually you don't like this government, and yet, after so-called handshake that you media houses like to refer, which for me really is nothing. You know, Kenya needs peace. I think I wish President Uhuru could shake as many hands as possible, but I hope they will not also tell us an agreement between a president of the Republic of Kenya with one other individual should result into that nonsensical thing called building bridges, which wants to eat into our money. We don't even have that money. So for me, opposition politics is not about confrontation. It's not about the drama we saw last week displayed by Emilio Odhiambo and our colleagues in the National Assembly. I wish we could go into the idea that let's talk alternatively. Okay. Let's say, for example, when Third Way Alliance proposed to Parliament in April this year, please amend the VAT Act.
We've spoken about that.
Stop postponing this thing.
Yes.
I wish they could come back to us and say, even under their own procedure in Parliament, they are supposed to get back to to a petitioner within 7 days.
We have spoken about that. I don't know if you want to have the last word about, because that's the role, the minority role that you should play in Parliament.
You know, Ken, it is very difficult to respond to my good friend, Dr. Ikuru. The reason why it is very difficult is because if I am speaking to Tuju, I'm speaking from ODM, Jubilee. What is Third Way Alliance? Honestly, I think next time you need to bring us at sort of the same level. Okay. So that if I'm talking Jubilee, ODM. Third Way Alliance, what is Third Way Alliance? We cannot have everybody jumping in the streets purporting to be speaking at the same level. If Jubilee and NASA or ODM decide that they want to shake hands to move the country forward, they can do that. And if you even listen to the conversation of my good friend Dr. Ikuru, it's so confused. At one point, oh, don't shake hands. At some point, oh, it's good, shake, bring more hands.
Not true.
Stop being confused.
That's not
and
true.
The reason he's confused is because of what I am telling you. He has no experience. You know, Tuju, you can speak with confidence and authority. He's been in Parliament. He's a Secretary General of a party. He has members who are followers. If we told him, tell us your followers, who are his followers? You know, you cannot just have every Atagaria on the street coming out and say
I deserve the right of reply.
I will give it to you, but
I deserve the right
you
of
cannot
reply.
have every Atagaria on the street coming here that you are Third Way Alliance. What is Third Way Alliance?
I'll give you the
No.
right
Okay,
of reply.
you give me the right of reply.
Give us people the same weight, same, same.
Let me just say one more thing about democracy, and I can tell you that as Kenyans, we should not beat ourselves all the time. I was dealing with a neighboring country, which my brother Ikuru may be aware of, in which a mayor tried to bring rules in terms of how settlement should be in that city. It's a neighboring country. And he stopped a general from building in a certain public land. The following day, the general brought 2 tanks to ensure that he can continue with his construction. What I like about our situation here in Kenya is that we can talk, we can argue, we can shout at each other, but at the end of the day, we are very civilized about it. What happened last week, well, we may have its sides which we may not be very happy about, but what I'm happy about is that here is a case in which Kenyans were not happy with the issue of 16%. Yes. The president looked at it and said, look, let me reduce it to half that. He understood the pain of the people. On the other side, we also know that if we don't exercise fiscal discipline, then of course it means that we will have problems. There'll be pressure on the shilling, which could actually result in devaluation of the shilling. With the devalued shilling, fuel will even cost more. That is fact, it's an economic fact. So basically, I think we're in a learning process. When it comes to how opposition or minority should relate with the majority, we have problems there. Here you have merely saying, look, I defied my party. On the Jubilee side, we had members who defied our position. I was asked, for example, what am I going to do about it? I said, look, we're going to address it. I didn't say we're going to punish anybody, just for purposes of correcting the situation, but we have to address it. Why is it that some of our members divide us. And that's something which is under investigation at the moment, and we're going to address it. Saying we're going to address it does not mean we're going to punish people.
Okay.
It's simply because, as a government, we must be able to have confidence in our troops that those troops are going to support our government.
Okay, but it's not true that President Uhuru Kenyatta reduced the VAT. It's not true. From 16 to 8%.
He actually did not reduce it.
He actually did not reduce. He did not reduce it. Introduced the VAT was never there. So and the 8% was a new introduction. So it can't be true he reduced it.
Well, the 16% was proposed.
Yes.
And it has been postponed, which means that it was the de facto situation that we had, that people were paying 16%. By law.
Yes.
We were paying 16%. All
For a
right?
period
Or
of
we
a
were
few
to pay
days.
For that a period,
For a
yes, we were
period of
supposed
few
to pay.
days.
And he said, instead of paying 16%, let us bring this
So
down.
it was only reduced at the point of the memorandum,
I mean,
but it was a new introduction.
Those are semantics with words, really.
No, but it's true.
But
It's
the
a
truth
new
of the
one.
matter is,
It's a new one.
Yes.
On
You
that
have
one, I would agree that actually it moved from 0
to 8. It was not.
Yes.
Yes, it was not there.
Because it
Daktari,
wasn't
I know
there
you're
before.
very passionate about
Yes,
this, but can
yes.
we move forward this
We
discussion?
can move forward, but
Yes.
before we move forward, first of all, I think I need to address the arrogance and a level of mediocrity that I, displayed by Millie, that anybody else who is not in parliament or who is not ODM or NASA does not matter. That for me is ignorance of the highest level. And I'm saying this with tremendous respect to Millie. Listen, this country belongs to every Kenyan in equal measure. We all must give views or opinions on how this country must best govern. I don't think the politics of violence and loud mouthing or shouting that Milo Odhiambo and our ilk in ODM or NASA are propagating is the only politics this country has. Third Way Alliance Kenya is a fully registered political party. So to say we are nothing, for example, I will tell you this at the risk of taking us back to 2017 politics. We were not planning chaos for this country like NASA was planning last year. When they did not want, they even refused to participate in the repeat election of October. Okay? We did that. We participated in that election because we believed in the rule of law, because we had a thematic campaign that respecting the rule of law. This mediocre way of thinking, it's only NASA or ODM politics that must matter, must be opposition. Honestly, for me, I find that not a dialogue that we must have on this table. In fact, if there is anybody who must be on this table, it's people who have an alternative view on government. Not people who are loudmouths, who are chasing the president to China for a handshake or whatever.
I am glad. No, I am glad that he's actually, because I've been wondering, since the whole evening he's got quite a bit of bile. And I don't mind when he calls me the mediocre and all that, because
not you, the politics
me and him, we come a long way, and he was my intern. So really, he knows I'm the one who's trained him, even if he's a doctor.
Okay.
And the chair, let me just tell you something.
When you train a student,
use this to
because he's calling me mediocre.
You need to let
But what
her
I want
finish,
to, let me just
when you train a student, you
I am glad that he has finally put the real issue on the table.
Which is what?
Because he said that actually the people who should be on the table is the Third Way Alliance. So his main concern is that NASA beat him to the handshake. He was hoping to shake hands. So please just relax.
We have to move on.
You are not known.
I have to move out.
Third Way Alliance is civil society.
With all due respect.
It is not any. You are not a player.
Third Way Alliance is not a desperado.
You are not a serious player.
Third Way Alliance is not a desperado.
Can we have this out of this?
This one plays football that in my language we call Abana.
But Third Way Alliance is not desperate.
The one kids play, they make on their own.
Third Way Alliance is not desperate to shake the hand of the president of Kenya.
Done. Well said. Well said.
They were granted.
Let's go back. Let's take it to Parliament. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this. This is how acrimonious passage of this bill was. Let's take a look at this.
I've had a lot of noise and a lot of finger pointing at Soipan to the effect that I did not follow the procedures of Parliament.
Right.
And I want to just say that the people making noise, especially members of Parliament, they are only doing so, they have either of two things. One being that they are feigning ignorance of the rules and procedures of the House, as well as constitutional provisions that guide the kind of process we had today in Parliament, or a lot of hypocrisy and dishonesty. When it comes to a voice vote, how do you determine that the threshold has been reached of 233 or the simple majority? The only logical and procedural way to do that.
All right, basically that was a response after the passage of the finance bill. What I wanted us to talk about is how it was passed, because that will form a foundation when she put the question and there's a way it was answered. And I'd like a response. I don't know if you have that one. Can you play that one?
Comes to a voice vote, how do you determine that the threshold has been reached of 233 or the simple majority? The only logical and procedural way to do that is for members to go to the vote, and actually those voting against a presidential memo are obligated to confirm that they actually reach the constitutional threshold.
But if you may,
the only procedural way to do that, which is more of a formality, is to have the ayes have the vote or carry the day to lead to a voting process so that we can confirm the numbers.
All right, she has explained what I wanted her to put out there when the ayes had it, in spite of the fact that the nays visibly had it, but everyone has watched it in the country. But she's explained the reason she had it to do that. Tell me this, how legal and appropriate was it for her to say the only reason she gave it to the ayes is because she wanted it to go to the division stage so that she would have the members of parliament to vote to establish the numbers that were on the floor of the House?
You know, the problem is you don't set your own rules while you're chairing. I think if I was my good friend, Honorable Soipan, I would just say that, well, it was an error and let it be, or don't talk about it. Because in law, there's something we call res ipsa loquitur. You know, the facts are self-evident, or they speak for themselves. If you had actually shown, if you leave aside what my good friend Ekuru is saying, that if you actually look at the way she actually did that voice, whatever, that when she talked about the ayes and the nays, it was so obvious.
Apparent.
It was so apparent that there are no two ways about it, that you cannot even argue about it, really. Okay. And for me then, all she could have said is maybe try and justify that maybe Parliament thereafter became chaotic, unruly, because people were not agreeing with her. You know, actually, what she did is what set Parliament on that path. Because people were like, you can't do this. There were two things, actually, that set Parliament on the wrong path. First, the electronic numbering that showed that we are 352.
Yes.
When we actually, if all members are in the House, we are 349. But on that day, we were 352. Then when members said, no, what's all this? It couldn't, even if you counted the clerks, it couldn't fit that because 47 members had been sent out of the country the day before. So they were out of the country the day before. So
but why was it not raised at the initial stages when the electronic numbers showed 352?
We did.
And it was ignored?
It was ignored. You know, the problem with the system of electronic voting is you press a button, an intervention button. If the speaker does not give you a chance, there's nothing you can do about it. Because all you do is press an intervention button. And I remember sometimes people even ask us, how come sometimes you have a matter, you know, that is so, you know, close to your heart and you can't speak to it? Because if you, so long as you press and you are not given a chance, you can't speak. It's not like before that we stood on our feet. So everybody will see that you are trying to speak. So she actually, she messed. If you ask me, with all due respect to Soipan, I think she was overwhelmed. So she made this thing really messy. Because we would have then established whether there were, you know, requisite numbers.
Before the vote.
Before the vote. We should have determined.
Let me speak to SG.
Practice.
You watched these clips, or you watched it live in Parliament. What did you see?
Well, I think it's good for me to put it in some other perspective. As SG of Jubilee Party, we put our ducks in a row. There's no way Jubilee, the government, could have lost this vote. Impossible. Why? Because for you to win the vote against a presidential veto, you need 233 members opposed to it. Opposed to it. Okay? So even if there were 300 members in the House, and there were even just about 70 who are not with the opposition, it will fall. So it's a bit, there's some technical aspects of it.
But you're not answering
but
what
for me, what was important is that people had opportunity to ventilate. And that is important in any democracy.
That's even after the speaker came in?
Yeah, even after the speaker came in.
Okay.
Even when we know, even when it is obvious those who were opposed to the president's memo were going to lose, it was important that they were given a chance to air their views.
Okay, the minority.
The minority. Because we knew they were a minority. Okay? Now, the thing is, when they were asked, okay, fine, let us have a division, they conveniently refused to have that conversation. Because they knew they could not win. Because if they agreed to the division, then it would have meant that we would have counted one by one. But they refused the division. Why were they refusing the division? These parliamentarians are not stupid. Don't think they don't know when they don't have the numbers. I mean, give them you know, you have to accept they're very intelligent people.
I agree.
Here is not a fool, all right? And those members of parliament, they know when they're going to lose something and when they're going to win something.
SG,
and that's the truth.
SG, I agree. I agree with you, SG. But I'm asking, what did you hear when the question was put?
What did I hear?
Yes.
Well, it is not my province to actually...
No, you're running away from this question. You're running away from this question. What did you hear?
I watched, yes. And I think that I would have heard that the no's were more if I was to make the judgment myself.
Okay.
But it is not my province.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
That's the first thing. The next thing, of course, is that there was opportunity to have division on this matter.
That one is agreed.
Right?
But it became chaotic.
Yes. Why were they refusing to have the division?
Good question.
I will respond.
The reason they refuse to have the division is because what we are seeing in Parliament today is political conmanship at its very best. These parliamentarians, including my friend here, Emilio Odhiambo, had been whipped by their party leadership previously, that this is the position you must be. So what they were doing on that day, on Thursday, was actually drama. They were pretending that that the leadership of the House has refused to listen to them. Because, like Honorable Tuju is saying, if truly they were honest about the fact that they want to oppose the president's memo, they could have called for a division and they could have voted. Over and above that, they later on came in a cosmetic way, pretending to be holding press conferences saying how they opposed this bill, and they're happy with. What stops Emilio Odhiambo today to move a motion based on Third Way Alliance memorandum to Parliament on Article 119 that amend Section 1B, Section 3B of the first schedule to tax exempt petroleum products? You could still move that motion. It is already there. So what I will challenge Emilio Odhiambo today, if she is really honest to what she's saying, that they actually oppose this bill, move an amendment to this VAT bill, and let's count the members of Parliament who will support Emilio Odhiambo's motion to amend.
Alternatively, what they're working on is to impeach the speaker.
No.
Alternatively, they're
Those
saying
are side shows.
Impeaching the speaker does not help the public. So, you know, us, we will deal with what helps the public.
Okay.
Now, what I can tell you for a fact, because I was in Parliament, him is speaking from here, say me, I was inside Parliament. So what I can tell you is that after, you know, Honorable Soipan did the goof by announcing the losers as the winners, then, first of all, the first goof was to read the wrong 352. Instead of, you know, the 349, she read the 352 as the numbers that are in the House, which was wrong. So we protested. And after protesting, then we went into that vote where we evidently won, and then she declared it otherwise. And when she declared, We are not machines. We are human beings. Everybody reacted spontaneously by screaming and jumping. And then when we screamed and jumped inside, and we were shouting division, division, because she was refused. We were refuting what she had just said. And when we did that, they actually purported to count us and said we are 215.
Okay.
And we refused the 215, and having refused the 215, if you actually look at the clip which you guys are not covering, we queued. We insisted and queued.
When she was calling the names?
Yeah, we queued, and then she refused midway and stopped. But let me just say one thing.
Question to Millie.
Can I just read one thing? Article 115 of the Constitution, sub-article 4. Parliament, after considering the President's reservations, may pass the bill a second time without amendment or with amendments that do not fully accommodate the President's reservations by a vote supported, not negated. Meaning they are the ones who needed the 2/3, not us.
Not you.
So this is already in court. So what we are saying is we are not doing removing the speaker now, as he's saying that is a sideshow. But dealing with this in court is not a sideshow.
No, but Ken.
Even we
Ken,
are not dealing with this.
Ken,
it does not help us.
What
this
stops,
is not a sideshow.
Millie and our colleagues?
6 months. 6
What
months.
stops Millie and our colleagues
6 months,
from
which
just
is
signing up a memorandum tomorrow? Wait, Millie.
6 months
Millie,
stops us, which is a rule of
Millie,
Parliament.
hold
6
on.
months.
6 months, which is a rule
You
of
can
Parliament.
still
stops
amend.
us.
You can still amend.
But you can only go to Parliament after
yeah.
after 6
6
months.
months.
Let me tell
stops
you.
us.
Well, let me tell you, Ken. There's a simple action Millie and the colleagues can demonstrate if they are really serious. I know they are not serious. They were just acting. They are being dramatic to show Kenyans that actually they are with Wanjiku, but they were not with Wanjiku.
Okay.
They were actually with their party leadership. This parliament is an appendage of the executive.
How do you say, you've repeated that several times. How do you say that? And yet, the members of parliament on the floor, I saw them, I heard them speak, the whole country watched. We were live the whole time.
The rules are very simple.
How do you say
the
that?
rules are very simple.
Third way alliance must
how do you
stand
say that?
remain relevant.
The rules are very simple. By the way, we will talk politics, whether you like it or not.
Nobody talks
that's my
politics.
question.
But you don't understand
Politics is not a
politics.
preserve of your lamentation, of your confrontation kind of politics. No. Let me tell you, it's as simple as this. They could have insisted on division. The rules are very clear.
Okay. Which we
they
did.
did not. Secondly,
We did.
And I've challenged them.
We did.
I've challenged you now, Millie. Tomorrow, produce to Kenyans a list of all MPs who say we are opposed to the presidential
I
memo.
do. I have.
That.
All right.
I signed.
Share it.
I have it.
Share it.
Millie,
Can you imagine
we have to
Mijungu?
take a break.
I
Share
actually did. If you saw me
Share
at
it.
the Watch Parliament, I signed.
Share it, Millie.
I
All
do.
right.
I can
Share
share
it.
it, but I will not
She
give
will
you.
share
I
it
will
with
give
us.
it to the relevant
Time
party,
now.
not third way
Share
alliance.
it.
Time now for a short break. We are
I
coming
have
back
it.
to finish
I
our
signed. I
conversation.
have it.
Politics of
Right here
conmanship.
on
No,
the
I
Sidebar.
have the list.
Plus,
I have the list.
Plus, we are going to take a look at your feedback next. But first, let's take a break. We'll come back to finish this discussion.
The Constitution is very clear that Parliament must be independent so that we are effective in ensuring that we play an oversight to all institutions. And I want to repeat this. There is nobody that we will allow to dictate to Parliament in terms of how they will do their business, how they will run their programs. Parliament is an independent institution as provided for by the law and the Constitution. We will not allow any political party to direct and dictate issues that concern the business of National Assembly or Senate.
All right, and that goes straight to the SG. That's your party member. And that was after a parliamentary group meeting. They will not allow, he will not allow, because there were only 2 other press conferences. But that's the nature of the kind of the executive arm that we have seen, to the extent that the members of parliament have to protest the executive hand.
Well, I think I would say it's a little bit of not fully appreciating what is dependence, independence, and interdependence. I'll repeat: dependence, independence, and interdependence. When you're a baby, you're totally dependent on your parents. When you become a teenager, you can begin to assert your independence. In fact, you can even tell your parents, leave me alone. but later on go back and say, can you give me some money? I want to go to the mall. That is the teenage stage. Interdependence is when you realize that we all need each other. That's why we have the judiciary. It is independent to a point. There are aspects in which there is interdependence. If the judiciary feel that they must be completely independent, then they should go and arrest the people, bring them to court, and run their own jails. If parliamentarians think that they should be completely independent, then they probably therefore should be able to get themselves elected in their own individual parties as independent candidates, and nobody will have a quarrel with them.
Okay.
The whole point about our democracy, why we even have a party, is so that then we can be interdependent. Nobody's saying that you are devoid of independent thinking. No, we all supposed to have our own independent mind, independent
so there's
thinking.
Internal democracy also.
There's internal democracy.
Okay.
And there's what we call interdependence.
Okay.
And in terms of relationship, and when you put them, string them together, the highest level is interdependence. When you appreciate that, then you are there.
Okay, but why is it that they still have an issue? They don't appreciate it, but they still have an issue because when we have these institutions that supposedly need to be very independent, which means if you're giving directives, for example, during that press conference, the contention was directives from the top party leadership, that this is the way you should represent this committee or you should sit in these committees, right? How do these committees, imposed or otherwise, then come back to check on the executive that imposed that leadership to begin with?
I think, I don't know how I want to put it. I try to simplify it.
Yes.
I don't know how else
Please
to put
do.
it. But the thing is that we are the majority party. And being a majority party, that is what gives you the locus to form a government. If you don't have a majority, you cannot form the government.
No, that's not true. Obama was president without majority, so that's not true. That's not true. He didn't have majority.
Well,
yes.
It is a little bit difficult to run your legislative programs if you don't have a majority.
Even in Kenya, the parliament that I came in, it was actually
the reverse.
Yes. It's the reverse.
Yes.
But that is why it was even essential to have a grand coalition so that then you could have enough numbers to be able to run your legislative agenda. And that's why when we go to campaign, even for the president himself, he wants as many members as possible to enable him to carry out his legislative agenda. Once he's done that and he's got members, some of whom he has actually gone and campaigned for, and the party has spent money sometimes to help these people to get their position, then I think it is anticipated and it's quite justified, that they should be part of the party. That's why you call it a party.
They should play ball. In other words, they should play ball with the party.
And I think it's very important. And I was in Parliament during this particular period, and I did talk with some of our members.
Yes, you in the corridors.
Yes, and they told me, look, I disagree with this. And I said, yes, I respect your disagreeing, but this is
important for us. Just one more before I cross over. Just one more before I cross over. Explain to me the aspect now that they'll exercise their independence while they're checking the same executive that has them playing ball. How do they do that?
Well, I think Mr. Ikuro should be one to tell me how that is supposed to be done, because he's a constitutional lawyer.
But you see, this is majority party.
That's true. That's true. But the way it is structured, I mean, the way it is structured, and this is not something peculiar to Kenya. I mean, even in Western democracies, where parties form a government, it is expected that the vast majority, actually the majority party, everybody should follow the line. Occasionally, you find a certain individual saying, my conscience does not allow me to vote on this particular matter in the way that the party wants. In which case, sometimes you even find parties tell them, vote your conscience. It's okay with us.
No. The parties actually tell them, we'll de-whip you if you don't follow the line.
I think, Ken, in support of the Honorable Tuju,
But
it's okay.
I'm not satisfied with his answer.
It's okay for, no, I mean, it's normal in any democracy for the ruling party to actually whip its members for its legislative agenda to go through.
Yes.
Now, but it's also incumbent upon the members of parliament, like say me, Odhiambo, Mabona here, to take into consideration, if I pass certain legislation, what do the people of Suba North expect of me in their social, political, and economic? Like when Millie Odhiambo and our party passed together with the then TNA, their then code, passed the VAT Act 2013. It passed overwhelmingly. Did she take into account what the possible concerns of the people of Suba were? That's now upon you, as a member of parliament, called upon to look at the idea that you must represent your people. Then you pass legislation that is actually going to be friendly to your people, but also oversight government. So it's not always necessarily true to just agree with anything. I think the truth for the matter is this. The kind of parliament we have and the kind of parliamentarians we have actually lack integrity. They are shameless. I mean, even someone like Emilia, I remember there's a time she wanted, I think, to strip herself in parliament. I mean, for me, I'm thinking, I think we have gone so low. If that is the kind of politics we want to talk about in this country, that is the kind of opposition politics we want to talk about, so disgraceful. Where
but
people,
that was an individual act.
Yes, where a member of parliament admits publicly that I had people being bribed of 10,000 in toilets.
Several of them
yes. Said it. I think we have lost the integrity of the House. And this is why, for example, we at Third Way Alliance are proposing that I think we need to reduce the size of parliament and end up with men and women of integrity who will not look at their party politics, who will not be whipped by their leaders of their party, but look at what if I pass this law.
But how practical is that? You can reduce the number from 349, and then you get 70 or 90. But it's the same people who will elect them. They'll elect who they want to elect. They're not elect who you want to elect.
But you know, the challenge is this, Ken. You know, it's the electorate that is responsible for the kind of leaders that we get.
Yes, so even if you propose...
But it's also, there's also another responsibility. As a leader, you're also supposed to lead your people, do the right thing for your people. So when we have the kind of leadership we have in parliament today that says, because I've been told by my party leader, do this, regardless of whether actually it is artful to the people you represent, then that for me is not leadership. That is leadership that is lacking, it's wanting, is leadership without integrity, and therefore these people are actually an appendage of the executive or of their political parties.
What I can say, I want to agree with Honorable Tuju that the way parliament works, even in mature democracies, is that parties have their policies, they have their agenda, and that is why you see Jubilee has a manifesto, ODM has a manifesto. Like our party stands for social justice. And once you come into parliament, I cannot then come to parliament and then say that from today, I am therefore independent of my party. And that's why there's the option to de-whip. If you do no longer believe in your party, then you move on. However, I want to agree that there are exceptional circumstances.
Such as the one that
like where the one we went through, where you put between a rock and a hard place. I want to obey my party, but I want to obey the voice of the people of Mbita. So when I'm put between a rock and a hard place, then sometimes you are forced to choose circumstances that you don't want. I'd rather always go with what my party stands for. And it has always worked very well for me. But having said that, I also want to agree with the Honorable Ekwe. That Ekuru. I want to agree.
That was your intern.
You are my intern, but that means you are very unimpressionable. That's why I can't remember your name. But having said that, I want to say that I want to agree with him that there are things I'm not happy about in parliament, like the issues of integrity, how a member can come and say that I was given money. Honestly, you are reducing parliament to a joke. That is there. And I would want to say that when you say that I actually stripped myself, if circumstances, let me just say, it's not for you to tell me what I know, let me just say what I want to say. It's not that I wanted, I was actually stripped.
You're really in a fighting
parliament.
mood, eh?
I'm not. You said it, so I want to correct it. I was stripped.
Okay.
But even if I were to strip, I want to tell you where I come from. Nakedness is celebrated. And I am beautiful, and I have a wonderful figure. So I'm not scared of my nakedness.
Okay.
So you can never use my nakedness to
Against you.
that you can intimidate me.
I wouldn't respond to the question of nakedness.
If you want, I can stand and I can show you.
Really.
I am very beautiful, my brother.
Don't make me go blind.
SG wants to speak. SG wants to speak.
So naked or not naked, I'm very beautiful. So you cannot, my brother, use my nakedness or that of any woman. And please, don't ever put a table on the gender issues trying to demean a woman.
No, I did
it
not.
makes you much less of a man.
I did not.
It means you are small where it matters, my brother.
I did not.
You are very small where it matters.
I did not.
Men who demean women are small where it matters.
I want to ask him a direct question. And then I speak to SG. SG, there's a direct question from Senator Eno Kwambua to you. I feel I need to read it because he sent it on text. He says the lazy argument by Okot about alleged overrepresentation is irritatingly cheap, coming from a lawyer of his standing. In 2007 election, was he the same guy who pretended to field candidates to take part in this overrepresented field? Yeah, so he wants another, just briefly,
first of all,
just on that, we'll come and close.
First of all, it's not a cheap argument. And I'm sure, I hope he has the mind to be able to read Article 255 all through to 57 of the Kenya Constitution. Now you amend the Constitution. There was no question about the fact Kenya's Constitution last year. The Kenya Constitution was very intact. That yes, we were going to fill in candidate, but it does not mean I, Ekuru Aukot, will necessarily agree with the kind of situation that the Kenya has right now. After all, the president himself, in the State of the Nation address on the 14th of September, actually admitted that overrepresentation is costing us. So if he truly calls himself, is Senator
Eno Kwambua of Obama. Is it McQueen?
Yeah. So, I mean, which means this is a fellow who has not even read the Constitution of Kenya. Because if you had read the Constitution of Kenya, it allows you opportunities, there are mechanisms on how you can actually amend the Constitution.
Okay, SG, because we really need to finish now. SG, you want to respond?
Well, in democracy, there are always contradictions. I'll give the example of a headmaster. If you are to ask your students or your pupils to vote on the best time they should be reporting school, probably the majority of them will say 10 o'clock. But as a headmaster, as the leader of the school, you may tell them you have to be at 8. It will not be popular, but it's the right thing to do. In this specific case, we must have a balanced budget. It may not be popular, but it is the right thing to do to protect the integrity of our country, to protect the integrity of the shilling. And let me just tell you, sometimes we beat ourselves too much. In the last 6 months, the Kenya shilling has been the strongest, the second strongest against the US dollar in the whole world.
Okay.
That is because of some fiscal discipline, which is done by our very good governor at the central bank and by us keeping our budget balanced.
Okay.
So sometimes it is, and that is the responsible thing that the president had to do. He had to balance between what is popular, what his constituents, because his constituents is the whole country, and what is popular and what he must do for the long-term good of this country. That is my conclusive remarks.
Using your analogy, what if the school has given the students the power to choose what time they want to come? Do you go back and tell them, no, we gave you the opportunity to determine, self-determine, but now I think this is right for you? What happens? And if it's guaranteed in the school's constitution?
I can't win that argument when you go that hypothetical. I've just
you gave the example.
I gave an example, and I think you should use it within context.
All right, let's take a look at this cartoon because we're coming back to close. I like, ladies and gentlemen, to take a look at this cartoon, then we respond to it. It's coming up. All right, that's the cartoon. It's basically a Kenyan right there. and listed alongside what she has is the taxes she has to pay: 20% excess cash transfer, 15% on excise, airtime plus data, 8% on fuel, 18% on kerosene, 15% on salary. And literally, this Kenyan is paying through the nose, right? So a quick comment on this, because we have to close.
For me, I think this proves the fact that we don't need the 8% VAT on petroleum products. Actually, if Honorable Tuju's government administration were to just recover the stolen money from 2013 to 2018 up to this year, which is about 647 billion Kenya shillings, I think then we don't need to tax Kenyans. You are just overburdening the ordinary Kenyan. Because you see, taxing petroleum, this is really a basic commodity for the ordinary Kenyan. And by the way, the 8% VAT is actually targeting to collect only 35.5 billion Kenya shillings annually. And of that 35.5 billion Kenya shillings, it will go to fund the lavish lifestyles of people like Millie Odhiambo, members of parliament, who are added themselves in this financial year, 2018-2019, 12 billion to their budget. It's going to fund offices such as the one that my brother, Honorable Tuju, is hosting, Minister Without Portfolio, Building Bridges team, Chief Administrative Secretary, which are brilliant. So even this taxation is actually not going to benefit the ordinary Kenyan. I wish the president, and I hope Honorable Tuju will take this message to President Uhuru Kenyatta. Please, recover for us stolen money. If you recover for us stolen money, Honorable Tuju, you don't need to charge Kenyans even a single penny on VAT.
Okay.
That is the way to go forward for this country.
Okay. Your reflection?
Yes, I would want to agree with Honorable Aukuru that on the issue of corruption, that if you are able to deal with the issue of corruption, then this country will be on the right path. And secondly, I have said it and I will repeat it. We need to relook at the budget, and perhaps we need to now merge the budget and finance committees so that we know, budget knows what finance does. So that we are not talking about revenue measures when the budget goes haywire. Okay. And actually, because I sit in the budget committee, I have raised it within budget, I've raised it outside budget, that there are items in the budget that we can cut, and we do not have to have a situation where we are affecting fishermen, where we are affecting Mama Mboga, where we are affecting the ordinary people in their day-to-day life. Okay. The cost of living is too high for the ordinary Kenyan.
Too high. Does it concern your party leader, for example? I know he's signed it into law, but does it concern him how much more Kenyans have to pay?
Well, I think there are certain things that I'd like to agree with the other members of the panel. One of them is corruption. I think that is one of the most shameful things about this country. And I think it is not only for government, it is for every Kenyan. To the extent that when this president, more than any other president, and I'm not just saying it because, he's our president, but more than any other president, he has attempted to prosecute, to take people to court, to get us into a situation where stealing and corruption is punished. You know what happens? When some corrupt fellow is dragged into court, they get 40 lawyers going to defend them. 40 political lawyers.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing,
How are we going to solve this problem? Really? Let's be honest.
No, but if
as far as
you have evidence, Mheshimiwa,
as far as,
it doesn't matter whether 100 lawyers or 40 lawyers come.
But as far as, I mean, it's actually also the optics of it. Yeah. When political leaders associate themselves with certain people who are facing criminal cases or anti-corruption cases, then it makes good politics to be seen to be associated with those people. I don't want to mention names, but this is part of the things which really bother me. And I think it should bother all reasonable Kenyans, that surely if we are to fight corruption, it has got to be all of us fighting it, irrespective of whether the person who is taken to court is our tribesman, is my cousin, or whatever the case may be. So to that extent, we are all responsible for the situation in which we find ourselves. We cannot just only point at the government, it is all of us.
Okay.
Now, as far as the cartoon is concerned, I think it is an excellent piece of artwork, good cartooning. It reflects the aspect of freedom of speech and expression in this country, which makes us a robust democracy, is wonderful, great. Thank you very much.
Does it communicate?
Well, I mean, you see,
because that was my question.
Yeah, no. In a cartoon, you know, I mean, the thing is that, you know, you should know what my background is. I mean, in a cartoon, you're supposed to be as dramatic as possible to send a message. It is not necessarily accurate. So if I was to go,
it's not accurate that Kenyans are paying through the nose.
No.
That's what the cartoon.
If you want to talk about Kenyans,
20% is real, Mheshimiwa.
Yeah, no. If you want to talk about Kenyans who are paying, I like to go to this extent.
Yes.
No. If you want to talk about Kenyans paying through the nose, yes, and especially people like yourself and myself, who pay, we only constitute 18% of the workforce. All these guys with the houses in Ruaka, in Lolongo, and the rest of it, building the gorofas, most of them don't pay any taxes because they're not in formal employment. If we increase the taxes of these people to, of people like myself and yourself who have got a payee in their pay slip, if we increase their taxes from the 30% where it is at the moment to 33%, and leave out the bulk of the people who actually are holding the money, then we are not being fair.
Okay.
All right? I want to give you another example. In this country, we used to have in colonial time what was called a hat tax. As long as you are a young man and you had reached the point of building your what is called your Simba, you're supposed to pay the hat tax. It was so unpopular. At independence, those are some of the things that we banned. Unfortunately, since then, we do not really charge people who own property as they should be charged.
Okay.
In the Western world, 60 to 70% of taxes is property tax. So we have some disconnect, we have some things that we have to sort out in our country. But for the moment, if we don't balance our budget, we're going to put pressure on the shilling will fall, we'll end up paying more.
But I thought, Mheshimiwa Tuju, I mean, I think the reason Kenyans are feeling the pain of these taxes, Mheshimiwa,
of course,
is because
we are feeling that.
Yes,
I pay taxes. I pay taxes. I pay taxes.
But listen,
my own
when
business.
government is not recovering money stolen, Edward Ouko documents annually, Ken, who has stolen what, who has not accounted for the money from governors, permanent secretary, cabinet secretaries. When government that actually gives that money, I mean, Honorable Tuju's administration, that gives out that money, is not trying to recover that money, then you come for us to charge us mafutata. Really, that's where the crux of the matter is, and which is why Kenyans are feeling the pain. Then why are we being overtaxed? Okay. Honestly.
In fact, Kenyans are justifiably angry.
Yeah.
Justifiably angry to pay taxes. Look, I told you, I pay taxes. I don't enjoy paying taxes.
Especially when they are stolen.
And especially when they're stolen. The problem is, why are they stolen? You try to stop the people from stealing it.
They go to court.
They go to court.
Well,
they go to court.
Yeah.
It's somebody's right.
They go to court.
It's somebody's right.
Yes.
I think the challenge is really back. I've said it before.
Yes.
I think I was saying it sometime yesterday, that our focus now is on the judiciary. Let's give the DPP a chance. He's new. He's arrested a few people. But the wheels of justice sometimes move slowly. But even having said that, it will be good for the judiciary to know that the country's focus is now on them. Okay. Because the country, people are overtaxed.
Okay.
Kenyans are feeling it. Kenyans are feeling it.
We must also admit, when the same executive that wants to fight thieves of public money is denying the judiciary the right budget.
I think that was corrected.
That was corrected.
That was corrected. Actually, they were the only winner in the supplementary budget.
Yes.
Right? So the only winner with an additional 1.5
billion.
No, but still doesn't meet their budget.
Yeah, they wanted 3 billion.
Well, it doesn't meet, but really,
I wish the executive...
Actually, they did get it. It's only the judiciary
we met the judiciary as budget committee, and we explained to them. And actually, contrary to what people say, even Parliament's budget has been deducted.
Yes.
So it means everybody, I can't remember it offhand, but most everybody across the board is affected.
In the supplementary, I think it was only the judiciary.
We need the judiciary to name thieves of public money.
All right, I'd like to do the feedback. I'm only going to do 3. Then I give you closing remarks, then I let you go. Right, let's take a look at what we have right now on Twitter. That is Aseno Churchill. He said what was witnessed last week was another indication of how the executive has used the leaders of the House to get anything they want to be passed by the House. I think we've dwelt on that, so we don't need to go back on that. Let's see. Agosh Jeronge says the opposition is meant to offer an alternative voice. Nowadays, when Jiku has been left isolated, well, Ekuro Court is here. They're offering that alternative voice. And finally, I said only three. Gadara, once again, nothing in Article 115 limits Parliament to either accepting the President's proposal or overriding them via two-thirds vote. Compare 115.1 and 115.2. The former uses shall to limit the President's options. The latter has the more flexible may with regards to Parliament. I think you read that. Yeah. So that sorts it out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have to let you go. It's well past your time, bedtime. But closing remarks, way forward, court and impeachment.
Well, I think for me, the most important thing is getting an interpretation of Article 115.
Okay.
Are we going the Philippines way or are we going the American and Canadian way?
Okay.
Which is that, does the President have an overriding veto or does Parliament have an overriding veto?
Okay.
For me, it is Parliament that has an overriding veto because that is in tandem with the principle of separation of powers.
And their role.
For me, the way forward, Ken, is very simple. Parliament should just amend Section 3B of the first schedule of the VAT Act 2013, and that way you remove the burden of this taxation from Kenyans. I think if Parliament did not sleep on its job, if Parliament really focused on the role of representation and legislating, taking into account all the social, economic, and political factors, then I think Kenyans will not be having this debate today. I think we have a lazy Parliament. I wish they could actually, wake up and smell the coffee and say, let's represent our people, defy our party leadership, defy the executive regardless, because we want to represent the people of Kenya. For me, that is the way forward. We already suggested a proposal to them. Just amend Section 3B of the first schedule of the VAT Act and make petroleum-related products into tax-exempt, not zero rate.
And of course, they have the numbers. If they want to do it, they will do it. SG.
Well, let me tell you something for sure, that this government, and for that matter, this president, cannot possibly be celebrating a situation in which taxes are increased. It's something which you don't levy with a lot of enthusiasm, that you enjoy just taxing people. I think the situation in which we find ourselves as a country is that a budget has been passed, and I must say that Parliament has to address this issue. There's some discordance in the sequencing, that you have a budget which is passed, and then later on you deal with how to raise the money. There needs to be some sequencing matters to be addressed by Parliament. I think maybe there's some loopholes with respect to the 2010 Constitution. So that has to be addressed so that then we don't find ourselves in the situation in which we find ourselves. A budget is passed, and then the finance bill comes later, and everybody is shocked as to what has to be done.
Should be done together.
Done together. Yeah,
okay.
So that's,
the finance bill
and again, I want to say, this is not to blame Parliament. This is not to blame executive. We are all in a learning process. This is a new democracy. This is a new, what do you call it, a new constitution we are dealing with. So let's deal with that so that next year we don't end up in the same situation in which we find ourselves this year.
Okay.
But I want you to be able to understand, I'd like Kenyans to understand, there is no way by which we can be celebrating taxation. Taxing Kenyans.
Okay.
It is something that we do because we have to act responsibly to ensure that the budget is balanced. The consequence of not doing it is dire for this country.
All right.
Thank you.
And as the President said, it was a lesser evil at this time.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And finally, a day after the acrimonious vote in the National Assembly, this was a headline. Drama and chaos as members of Parliament vote for taxes. Now, this was September 21st. It's not the first time such a headline has graced the pages of the nation's newspaper. Now, let's take a look back at some of the most memorable ones. For me, this was it. June 1997, pandemonium. Now, this was a budget debate. Suffice to mention the small headline right at the bottom of that. A year later, before then, July 1996, House in chaos. That was the headline, a debate and Francis Ole Kaparo sparks a near fight. This was after controversial ruling by the Speaker. February 1991, subheadline, concerns over members' behavior. June 1990, opposition split over anti-VP plan. Cracks started appearing in the opposition ranks over the no confidence motion against the Vice President then, George Saitoti. And January 2000, and now the late Kajwang faces discipline. This was after physically engaging the late David Mwenje within Parliament. Now, Speaker Francis Ole Kaparo asked them to explain their public statements in which they threatened each other with violence. And they were not the only ones. May 1981, long before I was born, Matano and Tipis in a fight. Now, Robert Matano and Justice Ole Tipis exchanged blows in Parliament after a dispute over clearance of a candidate in Busia South constituency. Matano then was the Minister for Cooperative Development, while Ole Tipis was Kanu's Secretary General. He's the Secretary General right now of Jubilee. Just a few examples of a few defining incidences in Parliament. In the recent past, we have seen or witnessed rows between younger MPs such as Charles Njagwa, that's Jaguar, and Babu Owino. A good place to end tonight. Sidebar. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you, Millie.
Thank you.
Odiambo, thank you, Kurokot, and thank you, Rafael Tuju. Thank you, Daktari. All right, have a good night, and thank you to my crew right here. Let's do this again next week, same time, same place. Have a good night. We go off air, but remember, we're still online. They're all on Twitter. I'll be responding to some of them. Good night.